Hello there, thanks for watching or listening to VIP Boxing's podcast. We're nearly on 180 now, whatever. You know me, Steve Lillis. You know the man at the end there, John Evans. I nearly called him John Jones then after the UFC. And I've got the man in the middle, my old pal, man. I always say, and we say it every time we speak every 5 years on the phone, we don't speak enough. Former WBO super featherweight chief, Barry Jones. How are you, Barry?
I'm good, all right, man. I'm all right, mate. By the way, I always ring you. You never ring me. I just to let you know, I'm always ringing you.
True,
It might be every 18 months, but still.
You know what? I haven't even spoke to Bunsey for about 2-3 weeks. They used to speak every 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Barry, I wanted to ask you, you were working at the Top Tier show yesterday, seeing as though you never stopped working.
Yeah.
What a boy Tom Welland looks like.
Yeah,
he could be.
Tom's really good. I've covered him because obviously I do Channel 5 as well. So just in case you didn't know. And and trying to make a few quid. Any channel needs a commentator? I'm cheap. That's why I'm cheap. But I've used I've done a few of his fights on there, and he's like I'm a big fan of his, and he's just maturing and getting better every fight. And last night on Sunday night, I've been Brentwood Leisure Centre. He was phenomenal. I mean, he broke him down like a seasoned pro.
Yeah.
He really did. Up the pace when he had to. Every shot, he punches through the target with every punch. The fast hands makes you miss. Can dip, can roll, can slip, can slide. Good feet. Great balance. I mean, you never know where they're going to end up, of course. They step up a level and sometimes they derail. But this kid has the every look about a future world champion or a future star or a future champion of some sort. Let's say that. I think if he doesn't win something quite big, I'd be shocked, to be honest. If he doesn't he's 20 years of age as well, so there's no rush with him. But the feeling is, and the worry is, they're going to have to rush him because he beats people up. So he's just one of those guys you're going to have to rush because no one's going to want to fight him.
Yeah, I know some people connected with Ramsey Barrett didn't think that was the best choice to fight for him yesterday. That was a week ago talking about it. But you know what? We've lost him again. I don't know how we're going to get away because he's got all the clock and the bell and everything. We just better start talking boxing, Barry, and see if he comes back.
No offence, I like John, right, before he comes on. It's a better podcast without him. All right, John.
Right, John, we're going to fire out. Have you got your little watch and everything, John, and your clock? Because he's deadly. We do stop after 3 minutes now, Barry, so you will get to see your children this evening.
Yeah, that's working. That's not connected to the internet, so that's fine. But,
right,
so that's
we're going to fire out. John, are you ready with round one? And I'm going to start us this week.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so Jack Catterall fights this Saturday. The Co-op Arena seems like the home for British boxing, that place at the moment. They've got all sorts there. Big press conference there today. John's going to tell us about. We're recording this on Monday, a few hours after the presser. Jack Catterall, not the name he should be. To me, he should be in mainstream. No one in the mainstream knows him. I know, people might say, was he that fella who had the fight with Josh Taylor? They'll have no idea about the second fight. He's been a pro long time now. Over half his fights have been for titles. I think he even won a Central Area. Well, it might have been his first title. He's beaten a procession of good fighters over the last 7 years. I'll go back to like a Pete Tyrone McKenna in a hell of a fight. Just don't think he's got the credit he deserves. He's hard to beat. He's won. Okay, you can count. There's not too many hands you'd used up. On two hands, the British fighters in the world who can compete with the very best in their division, and no one knows him still, even though he's topping the bill at these arenas.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he should be better known, and I don't necessarily think it's bad promoting because he's been with Frank Warren and he's been with Matchroom, so he's been with the two biggest promoters to push him, to where he needs to be. I just think off the back of that Taylor fight where he was brilliant and he should have won. I've been one of Taylor's biggest fans. I have Josh Taylor's, but that night I and almost everyone else thought he got beat and Jack Catterall should have been a unified undisputed champion. But there was too much of a gap in between that. You got to strike especially for your profile more than you just not a traditional boxing career. You have to strike while the iron's hot. and keep, because you're in the consciousness, you have to be busy and be the face and be pushed everywhere and fight quicker. And I think, waiting too long for that rematch, what was it, over 12 months, I think, wasn't it?
Well over.
I think that hurt him, hurt his profile, because that should have been the making of him. Even though he didn't win the fight by the judge, by the judge's scorecards, but that fight should have been the making of him. That's where he should have grown from there, and he hasn't. And that should have been the fight where, off the back of that, he got a fight with a big name. I think that, because he had a bit of a name all of a sudden, and then he should have just jumped in, not waiting for the Taylor rematch, even though maybe that would have been more money. I understand that, but fighting someone else who's a big name around that time, and still is now. Could have got Ramirez, people like that. He could have got those, maybe, possibly, who didn't have a title at that time. So I think he should have boxed a bigger name, and maybe boxed in the States or boxed somewhere, got one of them over here. And I think he missed that. And because of his style, because he's not a crash bang wallop fighter, I think that's hurt him a little bit as well, a little bit. But he's brilliant, and I think he's got the tactics right as well. I think he understands. I wonder what that was. I thought it was a fire alarm.
Round 2, John, you can talk to us here about, man, you must probably know better than anyone who works in the media, Zelfa Barrett, who fights Jazzy Dickens this weekend.
I feel like we could just swap Zelfa's name for Jack Catterall's from the conversation we've just had, because Zelfa finds himself in the exact same position as Jack. Tremendously talented, great lad, has been fighting at championship level for years and years. Nobody outside of Manchester really seems to know him. And I think it's the exact same position. And I think that Zelfa and Jack are both in the exact same position this weekend. I think we both need eye-catching wins. It's bad to say it, because we love Jazza on this podcast. He's one of our friends. Zelfa's got to make an example of Jazza this weekend. He's got to beat him in good style to really put himself in the mix. Big name fighters get offered Zelfa. They don't want to know, because he's not worth the risk. The reward's not big enough for taking him on. Zelfa's got to make himself unavoidable. He's got to make himself, inescapable. Zelfa's got to be in a world title fight or a big fight next. And the only way he can do that, it seems, is to put on a spectacular show this weekend.
Yeah, he admits himself he's underachieved, doesn't he? 32 this summer, and I just think if there's a style that's going to make him look good if he comes through, it's Jazz's, unfortunately.
Yeah, and size is going to play a big factor, I think, as well, ultimately, because especially the way that Zelfa whips the punches in. I think the Jazz can be tricky and clever, but both of them not at the peak of their powers, I don't think, anymore. Certainly Jazza, you would think, to be honest. But Zelfa, and time's running out for Zelfa. That's the worry. And I don't know whether world level is his level. I'm not quite sure, to be truthful. But yeah, you'd think he would have been a bit more of a bigger name, involved in bigger, certainly domestically, in bigger domestic fights. And maybe, because I thought he was close to getting that Joe Cordina fight at one point. And that would have been, I don't think he would have beat Joe Cordina, but I think he would have been respectful in his defeat. I think he would have put up a good show and made Joe work for it. And in many ways, that gives you, sort of makes you, and gives you a name where you're getting bigger fights because they want to beat you better than the champions beat you. Or he beats Joe and then he does what he wants to be. But him against Kakashi, that's a fight where it's hard to pick a winner. That's the truth of it. I think stylistically, that's a hard night for Kakashi, because he has long levers, he's fast hands, and his feet in and out all the time. He never keeps still. So it makes it hard for you to walk him down and hurt him.
John, you're around.
Sorry, Steve.
You're around Zelfa a lot. Does he ever mention you underachieving? I was reading an interview with him a little earlier. We'll get on to that next week. Round 3, over to you, Barry. Josh Taylor, is he going to be rejuvenated, or is it the last platform?
Yeah, that's the question I got. I think, him moving up in weight's the right move for him, I think. And he should have done that, maybe before he boxed Catterall in the second fight. But, he's been one of the best British fighters in recent years. Arguably the best. No, not. I mean, he's been close to the way that his run to undisputed is as good as any. It was brilliant, and I was just in love with him, and still am, of course. But I mean, I'm not the way he fights. I don't know if you can keep that intensity at that level forever. Just the way he fights. I think some styles don't bode well for longevity, and I think his might be that. I think I think moving up the welterweight, which again is a good division, but there are gaps in that division now. You would think for him to maybe push for a world title, but it's going to be difficult. And I'm not quite sure if it is time up for Taylor or whether Josh moving up gives him a new lease of life. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out, and so it'll be interesting to see when he boxes. I think sometime in the end of May. I think maybe possibly.
Yeah, middle of May.
How he looks. Echo Esserman, I think, is a good fight for him because a guy who's not a big puncher, but come right at him, and that's what he needs, I think.
Yeah, Echo Esserman. That's what I was going to say, Barry. Echo Esserman's certainly the person, as he should beat him, but he's going to make him work. He's not going to walk through him. John?
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see if that extra few pounds just gives him a new lease of life. I hope so, because that welterweight division, he could, if he is the Taylor of old as a new weight, if he can get that energy back, that intensity back, then him against Boots Ennis is a great fight. You wouldn't put him a favourite, of course, but I think it's a fantastic fight. There's big fights out there for him. There's really good fights, and a division that's still looking for the king. But Stanianos, maybe there's good fighters out there for him. But I worry that maybe he's just overpeaked now, and if he has, his style makes it hard for him when he just step up.
John?
Barry, as much as physically maybe just being past his best, Josh was he was on fire when he was trying to get to that world title, wasn't he? He was unstoppable mentally. He was unbreakable, Josh. Do you think having achieved it, maybe just not having quite that same amount of fire and determination and stuff at this stage also plays as big a part maybe as the physically?
I think so, because he's the guy who flourishes under pressure. The more I think in the fire, punches thrown over his head is where he thinks better. He thinks better in the place you shouldn't be. I think he reacts better in danger. I think him trying to box on the back foot doesn't work for him. So yeah, maybe that might be the case. I don't like this bell. This bell's not. I'm not a fan of this bell.
Round 4, Derek Chisora. Look, you can say it bad as you want. Otto Whaling was the other night. What can you say about him anymore? He's almost like, I don't go with this nonsense Paul Dempsey was saying about George Foreman. He had 10 years away and won the world title. I don't know what Paul was on the other night. He fought Shaq and Peters won a European title on Friday night. Anyway, but away from that anyway. But, he's almost like a comic book person. There could be a comic design on. You could do a Del Boy comic, the way he's suddenly conducting himself. Because we know he can be a right moody son. So suddenly he's like this, he's made this caricature character. But you know what? He's now a serious contender, isn't he? I'm thinking here, and you two might want me put down here. If he fought someone like AJ, I'd back him to outstay him. Do you know that? I think you've got to be able to hurt him. The worry is that he always looks tired and under strain from round 1, but then he's the same energy from round 1 to round 12. He looks steady on his legs from the offset, but somehow can carry on fighting. So he looks a man who's way past his sell-by date. He looks a man who shouldn't be in the ring, but yet he keeps winning. Not keeps winning, but he keeps being in competitive fights and winning, and then losing, but winning, and that's how his career's been. So yeah, he'd be competitive against most people, I think. And a test for people like Moses Atama, you think should blow him away with his ability, but he drags you into deep waters, doesn't he? Because he takes a good shot. I wouldn't fancy him against almost anybody at the highest level, but the highest level, I think, at the heavyweight division, excluding Usyk, is not that premier. Yeah. I don't think. No. There's no slight on him. You just fight who's in front of you. But I think so. It's feasible for him to get a world title shot, which is madness in itself. Really, you shouldn't be saying that. A guy would all say he should be retired, but also at the same breath, we're saying, if he got a shot at Parker and Dubois, you wouldn't say he's out of his depth. You put him as an underdog, but you wouldn't say he was out of his depth. So yeah, who knows? But just being a good servant to boxing and being fighting your 50th fight shouldn't warrant you a world title fight. That's for certain. And beating Otto Whaling shouldn't guarantee you a world title fight. But then it did for Joshua. So what's good for one should be good for the other. John.
Yeah, well, it made him number 2, didn't it? And we've got an IBF final eliminated with Bacoli and a Jagba. So I don't think Derek's going to wait around for an IBF title fight, to be honest. I'm not sure how good a gauge Wallin was, because I thought Wallin was absolutely atrocious on Saturday night. Absolutely atrocious. And I don't think anyone expected Derek to do what he did. Yeah, but maybe the manner in which he beat Wallin has complicated matters because it made him look so good.
John, over to you now. I hope you don't get cut off here during this. Queensbury to the Zone. You was at the big press conference. Tell us all about it and what you want to say about it.
Right, I know Barry likes a moan, so I'll have a little moan first. I think we should launch a campaign for 4 or 5 minute interviews at press conferences for camera carriers. Because it's a nightmare, these press conferences now. Anyway, right, so a big announcement. Kicking off with 3 major shows on the Zone. We've seen the heavyweight one, Kakachi against Leewood in Nottingham, and then Josh Taylor's return in Scotland that we've mentioned. And that's just the start of it, apparently. There's going to be a whole host of nights going forward. We've all heard rumours about Frank doing 30 shows. I asked him, and it's not going to be quite 30 shows. It's going to be a very busy year, not 30. There's going to be pay-per-views. He's going to be putting shows in America as well. Queensbury are going to be launching regularly over there. And it's just going to be one night after the next. Everything being on one channel seems to be paying off already because we had 2 boxer heavyweights on the first show with Jamie TKB and Richard Riakpo. Boxer fighters fighting on Queensbury cards. So I think it's going to oil the wheels, I think, and make British boxing run better. I think if today's anything to go by, I think it could be really good. Obviously, everything being on one channel and being on a subscription service is a worry for us, isn't it? Because not everybody's going to add the Zone to the TV package. But I think if they present a good enough product, heavyweight is going to be dominated by the Zone. Heavyweight's a big subscription driver. I think it could be really good. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they keep employing me, it's great for me. I got loads of work. I mean, I think so. I hope so. But who knows? But I think that promoters are working together now, or forced to work together. I don't think this copacetic thing is quite voluntary. But either way, whatever happens, the fact that fighters will switch promotions because they got so many fighters. These promoters, they can't get them all on their bills. So if you got loads of featherweights, but not a great featherweight, and another pro's got another good featherweight, then you can bounce yours off on his shows. I think that if they can work that way, that'll be fantastic. And I think it's a good start. I don't know how. I think there'll be a rivalry now. I don't think it's going to be plain sailing with Matchroom and Queensbury. I think there's going to be a bit. I think it's going to go back to a little bit what it used to be. Now they're on the same platform, vying for dates. They're more rivals now than they've ever been before, I would argue, because they're going to be vying for Saturday nights and not Friday nights or peak Saturdays and not the ones that nobody likes to go. Because I imagine there's Saturdays that people say we don't want those Saturdays because there's a big event somewhere else or whatever. I don't know. There's a reason why people pick certain Saturday nights, aren't there? Otherwise, shows would never clash. But I think that'll be interesting how that works out. And that's not a bad thing for the sport rivalry, by the way.
Yeah.
Barry, final 6th round, 3 minutes of this. Something I know you said you heard on the pod the other week when we talked about stack cards. Do we need them?
Yeah, I was going to say super fights or super cards. I don't know what's this February the 22nd card is amazing, and I can't wait for it. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. I got no complaints. That's all. But because I'm in boxing, nothing's perfect. There's a lot of fights there to stay concentrated on, and I'd rather this than not get them, by the way. But I would say super fights are great, and a good fights in the undercard are fantastic. But when you got there's 7 great fights there, but I mean you got 3 or 4 stellar fights that would just sell anywhere on their own. So, do one of them get lost? I don't know. I'm asking the question rather than me answering it really to you guys. I'm quite looking forward to February the 22nd, but are there too many big fights on the bill? I know, John, I think you felt that way, didn't you, a little bit?
Yeah,
that there was maybe too many
John
big
does.
fights?
I think they're brilliant. They're not going to get lost to me. I'm even thinking of missing a Fulham home game. I still haven't decided yet where I can swim. But it's a Saturday. I don't have to be at a show I'm matching, and I'm thinking of missing. To me, super cards, super fights, call them what you want. You can't have enough of them. And I know John disagrees with me. I go back to some of the mad shows Don King did in the 90s. I mentioned the other week, and I remember one. He had so many one night on a I can't think. I think it was a Lewis card in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. He couldn't fit. I think it was the 3rd meeting between Norris and Santana in. So he stuck that on in the afternoon. anyone could just walk into the I think it was the MGM. I think it was the MGM Grand.
Was that the disqualification fight? That was on it.
Yeah. It was. I think it was the third one, and the one, that guy, that lunatic manager Elvis Grant, after the disqualification, would get in and want to chin Norris and everybody. It was the third one, and Don King couldn't fit them all on, so you could go in the MGM for free that afternoon and watch that. That was the only fight. You turn up at 2:30, 2:45 to come on, and then you left. I went there with Bunsey, and I think Jeff Powell went there with us. And we were the only. There was no press there because it was only like the proper press who loved, but a few American press. It was great. And now more stat cards. Go on, John. Have your say and put me down.
Steve summed it up well there because he couldn't remember half the details, Barry. So all the fights in There we go.
It is a little bit of a concern.
John, I'm a lot older than you. I'm 62. The mind doesn't remember like it used to.
No, I agree with Barry because if it's great and fantastic fights, we'll watch them all. But if they all go the distance, that is a long, long night. And nobody will remember the fourth fight now.
We're out of time. Barry, thanks for joining us. And what I'll do, we'll keep in touch. I'll call you in about another 5 months when I want you on here again.
I might not answer this time. See how you like it.
You'd always answer to me.
Yeah. I rang you. I was in Bolton last summer, and I rang you. I was sat with Bunsey in a restaurant in Bolton. So there's only one, and I rang you, and you didn't answer. I thought, what rude that is. And then I thought, he'll ring me back some point and say, sorry I didn't answer, or text me. And I had to ring you again then about 5 months later. I rang you in June. You went, oh yeah. That was it. Oh yeah.
Mate, you know what? I'm not like that to you. I apologise, Barry, for that. Anyway, and John, thank you as always, mate. I hope you get your internet back.
Disastrous. Absolutely disastrous.
Pay the bill. That's all you got to do. Can we get a GoFund for John? Please.
Everyone else has a go. Yeah. Well, anyway, fellas, thanks very much for this week, and thank everyone who's watching or listening. We appreciate it, and we'll see you all next week, where Barry Jones might be back. I don't know. We'll have him soon back anyway. Thanks very much indeed.
For all boxing info, news, and latest interviews, amateur and pro across the north,